Well, what else? I mean, what were your takeaways from his, testimony, and how he was able to actually give the commission a sense, of how government communications operated, but how, of course, they could be manipulated by people like the Guptas?
Certainly, he was quite articulate, and even referencing some of these conversations that he had, and even remembering the days, for instance. There was one point where he spoke about when President Jacob Zuma at the time had called his political head, Collins Chabane, was the minister in the presidency, and President Jacob Zuma had told Collins Chabane that, listen, I'm out of the country. When I come back, make sure that Themba Maseko is not the head of the GCIS. It's either you terminate his contract or you redeploy him. And Themba Maseko saying that that conversation with the minister happened on the 30th of July and the 31st, rather the 30th of January. And on the 31st of January, that's when he found out that this is what the president had said. The president had said that he must go. Couple of weeks later, the cabinet meeting takes place, and in that cabinet meeting, Collins Chabane was then told, the entire cabinet ministers were then told that by President Jacob Zuma that Collins Chabane has something that he wants to tell everyone. He then stood up and then told them that we have removed Themba Maseko from GCIS. He will now be going to the Department of Public Service and Administration. And the minister at the time, Richard Baloyi, was not part of that meeting, and he didn't know. So the minister was taken by shock. Themba Maseko himself only found out through watching eNews, actually, that he has been fired as the head of GCIS.
Which, of course, painted a rather, dismal or dysfunctional picture of the government if that's how decisions are taken. And as the evidence leader then chipped in right there towards the end of that testimony, guess who replaced Themba Maseko?
The person who replaced Themba Maseko was Jimmy Manyi, and Jimmy Manyi, or Mzwanele Manyi as prefers being called. Mzwanele Manyi, as we know now, would 7 years later become the person who owns the now defunct New Age newspaper, as well as eNCA. So certainly it seems as though that there was this grand plan on how state capture will be executed. And certainly you needed people in those key positions who would take instructions as given by the Gupta brothers, because in one conversation, Themba Maseko spoke about when he was driving to the northwest to Sun City, he got a call from Tony Gupta, and Tony then told him that, listen, we are having a meeting on Monday. We need to execute this plan in terms of the advertising that you need to place. And then said, Themba Maseko said, I'm not available on Monday. Let's meet, rather let's reschedule and see when we can meet during the week. And Themba was then told that you are being difficult. About 45 minutes later, I think it was Atul Gupta who then called, or AJ Gupta who then called and said that, listen, I hear that you are being difficult. And if you're being difficult, I will tell your seniors that you are being difficult and you will be sorted out. Actually, the meeting is not happening on Monday anymore. Now the meeting will happen tomorrow, the following day, which was a Saturday. And Themba Maseko did not give in whatsoever. And the thing is that after that conversation, a couple of months later, the phone call that Collins Chabane then gets from President Jacob Zuma, and who said that remove this person.
And Themba has, of course, asked the commission to do whatever it can, which the Judge Zondo promised to do, to try and find other senior officials or people who served in very senior positions like DGs, DDGs, chief directors, and so on, who he believes will be able to corroborate the various aspects of his testimony.
Well, the sense that you get, though, even from that testimony yesterday and the testimony today as well, for instance, when Themba Maseko was speaking about how Tony Gupta had made direct calls to the various heads of different departments, the various communications heads of these various departments, and had instructed them that they must place adverts in the New Age newspaper. And when he was then asked by the evidence leader, do you care to share some names, he then said that he doesn't feel comfortable with that because how this might spiral out. and how it may affect these individuals. He believes that the investigators should probably get in contact with these people and see whether they're willing to speak, but he will certainly be giving those names to the investigators off the record, not on camera as he's been giving his testimony. So you do get the sense that there are some people who may know a lot of details of how the state capture plan was being executed, and who may have played an integral part in executing that the state capture plan, but who are scared of coming forward.
Or who before may have been scared, but perhaps because the atmosphere is a little different, now may well agree to actually come forward and share their experiences.
And listening to the evidence leader, they're saying that when Justice Zondo was asking about do you know of who these ministers are, because AJ Gupta had said that he summons the ministers to Saxon World, and they are then instructed to transfer their budgets into these accounts, the new age accounts and so forth. And the issue then is, will Themba Maseko eventually reveal who these people are on camera? And when President Jacob Zuma's lawyers, probably tomorrow when they stand in front of the commission, will they say, we need Themba Maseko to come back because we want to cross-examine Themba Maseko with regards to these allegations that he has made against the former President Jacob Zuma, and the chairperson asking about the ministers, and the evidence leader indicating, quote, he said that the ministers are lined up to appear before the commission.
It's going to be interesting.
Certainly.
Well, Aldrin Sampear, thank you very much for